chromatic harmonica philosopher living in a mountain way up high with food brought to him by porters from the religious order, would say that, or they might say that within the single note, one note, that within the single note is almost everything in music. Well, what is a single note? I don't know if that's everything. It's certainly not a song, but it is the building block. It is the genome, And I think that it is the smallest organizational unit in music, the single note. Now we have the absence of notes that's at rest too, but I would say that music is more about the note than it is the rest most of the time. So anyway, let's get into and I got another story. I was talking with Tim Welvars, who's a really cool guy. And he's with Naomi Adriance over in Europe and has a harmonica school. I'm sure you've seen his videos. He has a full head of white hair. And I don't speak about hair often, but this one's. And he said that he had a few lessons from Toots Thielman's Toots, and that Toots told him, play one note for 20 minutes, all along the harp. Each note, 20 minutes. What do you think he meant by that? Let's go over some of the ideas. Let's take a look at a single note. What can you do with it? Well, you could shape its tone, right, by using your embouchure in your mouth from a kind of a brightish tone. So you can control tone. The attack on the note, we have a diaphragm attack, which is relatively soft, isn't it? Because the diaphragm takes a while for that tube to fill up and for the diaphragm to do that. But let's do a tongue tap like they do in trumpet. Yeah, and the attack with the tongue tap, a lot brighter. Now I have a frictionless mouthpiece, so I have other attacks. I can go. I can just slide sideways, but you're probably not doing that. So let's talk about something else. We have the volume from barely recognizable. I love volume. A lot of players don't do that. I call that a bell curve exercise, where I go up in a gradual increase and then back down just like in a mirror. And that's what this sounds like. It's a great exercise. Control of the single note at all levels of dynamics. Many musicians don't do that, but you have to do it on blows and draws. Now, we have other things with we're still on the single note. Let's go vibrato. There's a lot of different kinds. I'm going to start with lip vibrato. But vibrato has a pulse. It could be quick, or it could be medium, or it could be, very slow. One form of vibrato. There are many forms of vibrato. If you look at my vibrato series on mastersofharmonica.com, you'll see all the forms of vibrato. Now, there's something else we can do on a single note. Of course, it has duration, doesn't it? I mean, you could play one for a long time. But you can play it for a long time, you can play short time. So the single note has duration too. Of course, the single note could go somewhere else, but then it wouldn't be a single note anymore, so we couldn't define it that way. What's another thing we could do with a single note? Vibrato. Or I'm sorry, bends. We already did vibrato. Bends. What is a bend? Now, how far does a bend go down? As much as you want it to. You can take it to a new note position and hold it. Or you could just do a little bend like a lot of people do. You could actually start a note bend. And take them up, not down. But they got to start bent to do that. So really, when we take a look at the single note, we'll see that, mountainsides and gurus aside, it is a deep and complex topic that's worthy of careful consideration and practice. And I believe that that is what Toots Thielmans was driving at when he said, play one note for 20 minutes. By the way, you'll notice that what it feels like to play this note over here, is totally different than what it feels like to play him here, is totally different from what it feels like to play him here, and how the harp responds, and what it does when you try and bend up here. You'll learn they don't bend, and these kind of bend nicely, and these ones a long distance, maybe 3 half tones. So the harp also has a little bit different breath requirement across the board, and they oftentimes will need a little bit more management in terms of embouchure. This one, you've got the jaw forward, like that. This one, it doesn't matter what you do here, that always sounds good. And up here, you might want to constrict the airflow to really get a nice sound. So, again, there is so much to think about, practice on the single note, as Toots Thielmans said. I hope you enjoy this one. It's all the single note. And I would say that those who have the single note under ultimate control will tend to have their phrases under more control and their music under more control, and a happier and more excited audience as they listen to something that's really well crafted.